Most people think change comes from big moments, but in my life it always began in the quiet, just before sleep, when no one else was listening. My name is William, and I am 82 years old, and what I learned in those silent minutes at night took me a lifetime to understand, and I wonder how different things might have been if someone had told me sooner. I did not live a remarkable life, at least not in the way people measure these things. I worked, I raised a family, I made my share of mistakes, and I carried more regrets than I ever admitted out loud. There were years when I felt like I was just moving forward because that is what you are supposed to do. Waking up, going to work, coming home tired, and telling myself that one day things would feel right. But that day kept moving further away, and I did not understand why. It was not one big failure that shaped me. It was the accumulation of small things I ignored. Words I never said. Chances I did not take. Apologies I delayed until they were no longer possible. And at night, when everything slowed down, those things would come back to sit beside me in the dark. I used to try and push them away, distract myself, tell myself I would think about it tomorrow, but tomorrow always came with new noise, and I stayed the same. I remember a particular winter evening, sitting alone in the living room after everyone had gone to bed. The house was quiet in a way that felt heavier than usual. I had just had an argument with my son earlier that day, one of those arguments where you both say things you cannot take back, even if you wish you could. I sat there replaying every word, feeling that familiar mix of anger and regret, and for the first time, I did not try to escape it. I just sat with it. That night, before I went to sleep, something shifted. I did not have a grand realization, nothing dramatic, just a simple thought that came to me as I lay in bed. I realized that the last voice I heard every day was my own, and it was not a kind one. I spoke to myself with more criticism than I had ever shown to anyone else. I reminded myself of my failures, my shortcomings, the things I had not done right, and I went to sleep carrying that weight, only to wake up and repeat it all over again. So that night, almost out of exhaustion, I tried something different. I spoke to myself, quietly, honestly, not as a judge, but as someone who was tired of carrying the same burden. It felt strange at first, even a little foolish, but there was something about saying those words in the silence that made them settle deeper than any thought I had during the day. Over time, those quiet moments before sleep became something I relied on, not because they fixed everything overnight, but because they slowly changed the way I saw myself. And that, I learned, changes everything else. I did not need grand speeches or complicated ideas. I needed a few honest sentences, repeated with sincerity night after night, until they became part of me. I began by telling myself that the day was done, and whatever I had done, right or wrong, was already behind me. That simple acknowledgement helped me let go of the constant replaying in my mind. I stopped carrying the entire day into tomorrow. I started allowing myself to rest, truly rest, without the weight of unfinished thoughts pressing on me. Then I started reminding myself that I was still here, still breathing, still given another chance, whether I felt ready for it or not. There were days I did not believe it mattered, but saying it anyway planted something small inside me, something that slowly grew into a sense of gratitude I had not felt in years. Not the loud, kind people talk about, but a quiet appreciation for simply being given another morning. There was also a point when I had to face the truth about forgiveness, not just toward others, but toward myself. I had spent decades holding on to things I wished I had done differently, punishing myself in ways that served no purpose. So I began telling myself that I was allowed to let go, that holding on to guilt would not change the past. It would only steal what little time I had left. That was not easy, and even now it is something I still work on. But saying it each night made it a little more real. I also found myself speaking about the people in my life, even the ones I had hurt or drifted away from. I would quietly wish them peace, not because I thought it would fix anything directly, but because it softened something inside me. Bitterness has a way of making your world smaller, and I had lived in a small world for too long. Letting that go, even in small ways, began to open things up again. And finally, I started ending my nights with a simple promise to myself, not a grand one, just the intention to try again tomorrow. Not to be perfect, not to fix everything, but to take one step, however small, in a better direction. That promise became something I could carry into the next day, something steady and quiet, like a thread connecting one day to the next. What surprised me most was not how quickly things changed, because they did not, but how steadily they did. The way I spoke to myself at night began to shape the way I moved through my days. I became a little more patient, a little more present, a little less harsh with myself and others. People noticed it before I did. My son and I found our way back to each other, not through a single conversation, but through many small ones that I might not have had the courage for before. Looking back now, I realize that I spent so many years waiting for life to change on its own, not understanding that change often begins in the quietest places. Not in the noise of the day, but in those final moments before sleep when you are left alone with your thoughts and your truth. I am not here to tell you that a few words at night will solve everything. Life is more complicated than that, and it always will be. But I will tell you this. The way you speak to yourself matters more than most people ever realize. Those quiet sentences you repeat night after night, they shape the way you see yourself. And the way you see yourself shapes the life you build. At my age, you start to see things more clearly, not because you become wiser all at once, but because you run out of time to pretend. You begin to understand what truly mattered and what never did. And if there is one thing I wish I had learned earlier, it is that change does not always require strength. Sometimes it requires honesty and the willingness to face yourself without turning away. So tonight, when the world grows quiet and you are left alone with your thoughts, do not rush past that moment. Sit with it, even if it feels uncomfortable at first. Speak to yourself, not as someone who is failing, but as someone who is still becoming. You may not believe the words right away, and that is all right. I did not either. But if you keep showing up in that quiet space, if you keep choosing honesty over avoidance, something will begin to shift, slowly, quietly, in ways you might not notice at first. And one day, you will look back, the way I am now, and realize that the life you were waiting for did not arrive all at once. It was built in those small, silent moments, one night at a time.